Yeah.
Oh, thank you for putting me on the spot first. Uh, I thought we were done.
Apologies.
Okay, I'd say I think I got into tech in my final year of undergrad school. That was like 2017. Um, like you said, I have a background in chemical engineering, and prior to that, I had done like a field internship in Mocha Foam, where I worked in like the manufacturing plant and helped in the production process. And it was that experience that immediately showed me that I honestly didn't want to spend the rest of like my career journey doing like a very routine, monotonous kind of stuff. And that was when I really started to ask those questions and push like the boundaries of what exactly I want to do and really define the things I want to go into. So yeah, that's basically what pushed me to tech. Well, that and the money that people were seemingly making at the time. So the two of them.
Okay. I think someone is trying to share his screen. Please, can you stop sharing? Okay. So let's hear from Iswat. How do we start the tech journey?
Hi, Assalamu alaikum. Well, for me, it was what? Hello.
Walaikum salam. Yeah, yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, it was echoing for some minutes or for some seconds. I'm like hearing myself over and over again.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I think he's trying to share his screen. Let me look for the person. Code that JavaScript, please. Yeah. Okay. It's fine now.
Hello. Okay, yeah, I think
Hello,
it's
Iswat.
better now.
Yeah, it's fine now.
Okay, yeah. So for me, it was pretty easy for me to get into tech because of my background. So I initially went to Yaba Tech where I studied computer engineering, and like that was my very first attempt at technology. And I later went to University of Lagos to study systems engineering. So it was during the course of my studies. I initially wanted to explore the software development world, and then on finishing my undergraduate from Unilag, I got into a training with Zynox technology where I had opportunity to explore other options and then decide on what I really want to do. And then and there, I started my journey on data science. And afterwards, I worked in a tech company. Well, maybe not. Well, I worked in technology distribution in Lagos, and there I worked as a data scientist. And afterwards, I decided I was going to study a data science course, like for my master's degree. And but eventually, I got into a program, computer science, where I'm able to choose what I really want. And then, yeah, that's how I got into tech.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask, you said you studied systems engineering. Why
Yeah.
study systems engineering? Do you do like a was that a course, a particular course you did that like sparked your interest in tech, or it was just when you finished that you started systems engineering?
To be honest, I'm trying to remember Unilag. Like, it's been like 4 years now. I don't think I did any special course other than programming that sparked my interest
Okay,
in technology. So that's it.
okay. Let's hear from Hanifa. I'm guessing she studied systems engineering, so
Yeah, sure. I think for me, like I think from the first time I saw like a laptop and I got to play around with it when I was really young, I kind of knew I was going to do something in that line, and naturally I had like very strong proficiency for math, sciences, and things like that. And so when I wanted to go into uni, I initially wanted to do computer science, but I think when I started discussing with someone who was kind of like a mentor, then with my love for maths, physics, and all the other pure science, I'd suggested rather that I maybe do some research into systems. And so I did, and I saw that I had like all the elements of things I wanted, like pure maths and some elements of computer science. And so I got in for it. I think the first time we were introduced to like programming was sometime in year 3, and it was so challenging to like wrap my head around the concepts, even though like I was really familiar with using computers. Like I think programming is a different ball game in itself. Um, and so what I did then in year 3 was I just used to read to pass or cram and things like that. I think what really made this like made me choose this part really was when I went for my was this COS 6 months internship. So I was very keen on doing my internship in a software engineering firm, and fortunately for me, I got the opportunity to intern like in a fintech then, and I was exposed to so many like software engineers. I would talk to them, and it was so interesting. And I said, if I was going to come back to this company or something, I really want to be on the software engineering track, because my internship, my COS internship, was like fully software engineering. And I remember HR then had told me that, oh yeah, we would love to have you. Just let us know, when you're ready to come back, blah, blah, blah. And so like when I went back to school, I had this mindset of this thing, I'm going to really understand it and, try to learn as much as possible and leverage my colleagues at school. And I think year 5 was when it really clicked for me, when I really started to understand all these basic concepts, like, what functions were, how variables work. And I don't know if anyone here has experience with C#, but it's very strongly typed. So if you can wrap your mind around things like that, it will make it easy for you. And so like towards the end of final year, like everyone was running helter skelter, like trying to get jobs. I don't know what was chasing us then, but we all didn't want to like sit down at home and things like that. And for me, in addition to applying to where I'd done my COS internship, I also applied to some, companies outside of the country. And for me, like it was a
That's
bit
great.
late in the sense that I'd known about some of these opportunities all through school. There were a few companies then that used to come to Unilag to recruit people for internships rather. And I had waited for some reason until my final year. I think final year was really when I transformed. And I had applied for jobs in Nigeria too. Fortunately for me, I got the job in Nigeria first. And like that that process of getting the job was really very like a validating experience for me, because the whole algorithm I had to write was something around traveling salesman problem. And for anyone who doesn't know here, the idea with traveling salesman is to basically calculate like the shortest routes like between cities for someone who is traveling, to get, I think, to get there, to minimize maybe distance, cost, or things like that. And although I knew the concept, yeah, when like from school and from basic stuff, I didn't know how to write the code. And somehow at the end of 2 days I was able to write it. It was something that was very like validating for me, as I said. And I'd gotten the feedback that I was the first to actually pass this test. No one else had passed that test before me. At the same time, like some of the internships that I'd applied for, I was still going through the process. I think I got the opportunity to travel to Ghana for the assessment center. And sometime in January 2018, I got the internship offer. And I went on internship in like June to August. And at the end of the internship, I'd gotten like a full-time offer. So this is really long-winded, but for me, like tech has always been something there. And I just really settled into it towards the end of like undergrad year for me.
More, these are interesting questions actually. So we'd like to hear from Ajibola. Thank you for that. Ajibola, let's hear from
All right. Thank you, everyone.
you.
It's been interesting so far. So, I started my journey into the
Yeah.
tech world right out of the choice I made to study computer science in University of Lagos. So apparently that set me up on the course to tech. And of course, I decided to major in networking as the case is my final year, when of course there was a lot of boom about for Cisco certifications then. So I did CCNA in my final year 2007, and from then it was onward and upwards in terms of the Cisco certification exams. I mean, because it was almost like if you weren't doing Cisco then, I mean, what were you really doing and stuff. So everybody jumped on that bandwagon, and of course from there, developed passion for it. Downloaded Packet Tracer. That's a software for simulating labs. And of course, while I was in final year with a group of friends, we were like 10. Went for a CCNA class at Fadi. I remember very well, Fadi bus stop then. And of course, from there the passion was built. And of course, at home I would simulate labs, get lab scenarios from some Indian tech guys, and create lab scenarios at home on Packet Tracer. And then there was GNS simulator as well, and then of course, like that. But of course, after graduation, I didn't immediately get a job, so I was always at home just preparing for CCNP, which is Cisco Certified Network Professional, which is the next stage for CCNA. So I wasn't going to wait for a hands-on job experience to to fortify myself, since I have a passion now that I identified out of all the different domains in IT. So given that I'd gone with network and I kind of liked it. So I started simulating labs at home. I attended training sessions at Cofield, at Ikeja Underbridge, Awolowo Glass House. And of course, I became really, really good at what I was doing. Incidentally, I got a job temporarily at the Secretariat Alausa, but I didn't really use my networking skills. However, I mean, my colleagues then could attest to the fact that whenever there were anything doing in the office, I was always pouring through Todd Landley's book, PDFs and all that. And then eventually, the opportunity to use my skill came when I joined GT Bank in 2012. And then of course I did networking all the way as a team member. Eventually I got to the team lead role there as well, in terms of doing some architecting and then redesign. And of course, while doing all this as well, I never stopped taking certifications. And of course, you jump on other vendors as well: Checkpoint, Palo Alto, Fortinet, different vendors, as long as that's the core. And then of course, from then on, it was onwards and upwards, taking seminars and doing certifications. Basically, the network security domain is certification driven. As long as you take certifications, it's a way to keep yourself abreast of technologies that are evolving in the area: software defined networking, next generation firewalls, and the rest. So basically, that's a brief about how I have traversed this path of tech. Thanks.
You're welcome. So that means you had like a clear patch when you are graduating. Like, okay, I'm going to do this cyber security.
Yes, yeah, yes, because of course, when you're in your final year, those conversations come like, okay, guys, what's gonna happen? Some people had the flair for coding. I did my bit as far as coding was concerned. I remembered, I think it was in my set that we started object-oriented programming. That's C sharp, yeah. We did C sharp, yeah. It was in my third year, 2006. Yeah, that Unilag started doing the object-oriented programming C sharp. We had the first edition of a Microsoft Imagine Cup. So things were happening then. So some guys stuck to that. And of course, given that we all did different areas, we all had to experience all the domains in IT then on the university level. The networking part jumped at me. And of course, a way to further harness that interest was to take certification. And of course, the only certification anyone would go for then, I mean, of course, there was CompTIA, Network Plus then, but it wasn't as industry, accepted or recognized, or it didn't have a lot of following like Cisco. Cisco, I mean, everybody was a predominantly Cisco shop. Everybody ran Cisco in their environment, and of course, since I've identified the passion for network systems, it was only obvious that I was going to go for Cisco CCNA. So that was
Nice.
a clear path. Yeah.
Yeah, nice question. So we had that almost all of you have Japa. So we want to like know, how do you start your work travel abroad journey?
It,
Like
it,
do you
you
do you
have
have
to.
like that clear path? You had the clear part that okay, I'm definitely going to Japan.
Okay, so this is it there. You know, we all have different stories. You understand? Of course, the interest to relocate has always been there for me. However, it was gonna be, a legit means and stuff, but the opportunity never presented itself. So I just continued with life in Nigeria until the opportunity presented itself. So to put things in context, I'd always wanted to travel. So that feeling was there. The idea was there. The thought had been seeded way before I even traveled, right? It was just to wait for the catalyst that would, kickstart the event. That was a question. So I carried on with life, progressing in my professional career, doing what I had to do. So maybe it was more like delayed gratification. And then in 2017, it took for me to just, connect with an old friend, and we started talking. And it was like, oh, do you know this is actually happening? So the funny thing is, people have actually, okay, so I'm currently in Canada at the moment. The funny thing is, people have actually been moving to Canada, right? However, I wasn't in that area or space to know of it, or to hear about it, or to even understand the process involved. Like I said, the seed had already been there. I'd always wanted to immigrate, because at the end of the day, I'd always thought that one could use a bit of international exposure in terms of what you're trying to achieve. Because when you think about it, like I worked in a financial institution, for example, it gets to a point whereby what you do, it becomes monotonous. Okay, so I manage over 500 branches, why there are network connectivity to 500 branches, across Nigeria and across subsidiaries in Uganda, Rwanda, and a UK subsidiary and the likes, wherever GT Bank had their, footprints, you understand? It gets to a point, it's all about, oh yeah, ensure we have high availability, you enforce SLAs, and of course you try to do integrations and projects with MasterCard and the likes, InterSwitch, unified payment, eTransact, Paystack, Flutterwave, all those guys, basically integrations, the financial ecosystem. So it gets to the point like, oh yeah, it's business as usual. You probably want more. You probably want a new environment, and of course, popping up to another bank is pretty much the same thing, unless it's absolutely necessary. Which necessitated why I left for Fidelity Bank. Eventually, it was more about you know having a relationship with the CISO, Chief Information Security Officer. Okay, I'm trying to start something here. I'm trying to start something here, and what can you do for us, basically? So in 2017, I met this friend. He told me about it. Like, okay, yeah, let's look into it. And of course, he had conversations with me, and he shared the requirement. You understand? Of course, I hopped on it, followed all that was necessary, and then of course, here I am. So the will to travel has always been there. To answer your question directly, Abdullah, the will to travel has always been there, just for that international exposure. However, it was only a matter of when rather than if for me. So maybe you want to ask me
Okay.
particularly what I went through. However, maybe I'll allow others to talk as well regarding that.
Okay, awesome. Let's hear from Anifa. I think she's graduate assistant, right? So how do you start your work life abroad? Yeah, that's my
So,
question.
so starting my work life abroad. So I think where I left off was, I had gotten the internship and I came down here for 3 months, and it was very intense, if I remember very well.
The internship is sorry. The internship, what company?
Okay. You want me to say it here? Okay. So I got an internship with Bank of America Merrill Lynch here in London. So I came down here for 3 months, and for me, like it it was very intense because that was the first time I was even going to work with people who didn't look like me, who didn't speak like me. It was also highly competitive. I think the class of interns were like 200 or so above, and there were only going to be a number of people who would get the full-time offer. And so, like, I went through the whole internship with, and if I need to get this full-time offer, because I knew what it was going to mean to, my family, myself, and things like that. Because keep in mind, like, up till me getting that internship, my main thought was, okay, I just want to get a job in Nigeria and not just sit down at home. Like, I never thought that I was going to travel through, like, getting a job, if you get what I mean. So
Interesting.
when I finished the internship on the last day, I was given the full-time offer, and it was more like, okay, now I can relax. So I went back home, did my NYC, and came back to the UK in 2019. And when you come back as an like as a full-time employees slightly different, the expectations are different and things like that. So I had to kind of adjust to the thought that, okay, I'm not going to go home anytime soon. This is now when people are like looking to you for answers and things like that, even though I was still just in the grad program, lots of more responsibilities. And I think the biggest part of what I struggled with was making sure that my voice was heard where it needed to be heard. So I'll give you an instance. Like I'm someone who is very introverted. So I had this thing where, I didn't feel like I had to speak up in most of the meetings. If I didn't really have something to say, I wouldn't say it. But like now, looking back, what I realize is you
Yeah, sorry, apologies for that.
okay. I can
I
still
think you can continue.
Yeah, because anyway, so like for me, it was really like learning that you are in all of those rooms for a reason, right? Like you were not put there because people want you to be quiet. You should have opinion on things, and you should make sure that your voice is being heard. Like even though you don't know about what's going on, even asking questions can make sure that you really get the context you need and you're really able to influence stuff. So yeah, like pretty much settling in outside of that was cool. I still always say to dates that one of the best ways to move like from Nigeria to other countries is through the work route, because most times the companies will sponsor your visas. They will even get you a place to stay maybe for the first month or something. And overall, you already have an existing network of people, so to speak. Um, yeah, that was it for me.
Okay, thank you. Let's hear from Iswat, graduate assistant.
My own is school now. So what am I supposed to? What's the question? Sorry. Hmm? I can barely hear anything.
Where I'm coming. So the question is, how do you start to work travel abroad? Even though it's no okay, you can talk about your school. You are doing it related to tech stuff, computer science.
Okay, for me,
Do you get the
um,
question?
yeah, I do. So for me, I mentioned earlier, I'm currently doing my master's. So after uni, even like right from uni, during my undergraduate days, I've always known I want to do my master's. I've always wanted to do my master's. So it was, for me, it was more of master's than trying to even get a job. Although I tried to get job abroad, but it just didn't work. And I was also trying school on the side. And then, so because I knew I wanted to come for my master's and it had to be US to be precise, um I knew I was going to write GRE and other tests that would enable me to I'm sorry, I'm blubbering. I got distracted for some seconds. Okay, yeah, so for me I wrote GRE because I knew I wanted to do my master's in US. And after GRE, I mean, side by on the side, I was also applying to different schools in the United States. And I think I applied to 5 schools in total. The same year I got this admission, and I got about 4 admissions thereabout. And so for me, it was more of getting funding or nothing. Like it had to be something. It had to be a scholarship for me to be able to come, because of course I knew I couldn't afford getting a master's degree here. So after applying and getting admission, all I just did was kept pushing for graduate assistantship in all of the schools I applied to. And yeah, I got graduate assistantship. That was sometime during COVID, and I couldn't even come then. And I had to defer, and yeah, after I came after like COVID. Of course, there's still COVID, but after some time, I was able to come to the US, and yeah, I think that's it.
At least if you can't japa from tech, you use school to japa.
Yeah, because
Abi now.
it was like an option for me, and I was ready to die there.
All right, thank you. Let's hear from Shonubi. So,
All right. So I think my story or my process was very similar to that of Isewat's own. As at the time that I really started getting into this tech thing as a proper thing, that was like final year. A lot of my guys and the people around me were already like legs ahead and miles ahead. And just like Anifa mentioned that she got an internship, there were so many of those opportunities that were for people that were in school. But I was so far off the pace at that time, and I honestly didn't understand what was going on. So when you see people that were preparing for like Microsoft internships, Goldman Sachs, and things like that, I mean, I was just basically still trying to understand how to assign variables at that time. So it kind of like exposed me a lot to how much was possible in terms of pushing this tech thing, that you could actually reach some very, very cool heights. So I from that point, it required like me to be very strategic and plan. I had like a 2 or 3 year plan that involved me getting actual work experience and moving from like a complete beginner to like mid-level, then using that mid-level experience to push like a master's degree, and from there just continue to build on the story. So I'd only say that it definitely wasn't as straightforward as it probably sounds. The beginning was still very fuzzy, and I think a lot of people can probably relate to that. When you start, it's often very hard to get like your first big break, or finding your feet generally, because I remember it was the same for like almost a year. I was like, what exactly have I been doing for a whole year? You've been learning so much, but it still feels like you don't know anything, and it still feels like your head is underwater for most of it. But luckily, if you stick to the plan, if you trust the process, then things keep popping. I applied to a couple of schools. I knew exactly the program I wanted to do. I wasn't going to go for a computer science major because I didn't necessarily want to go into like research. I chose a route that was more in tune with building on the current experience that I already had, and tech management was like the perfect fit for me. So it was just about finding the right schools with the funding that will also make that path easier. And that was basically what I got. So I guess that's how I got in.
nice, nice. So you even have like a plan, roadmap. Okay, next 2 years, so I'm leaving Nigeria. Nothing
Definitely.
can spoil, whether book or tech. Anyone will take me out. Now, okay, that was an interesting one. So I would like to ask this question: what was like the most terrifying experience you had through the journey of work abroad? Um, Ajibola Yusuf, can you answer this question first?
Sorry, I didn't catch that. Could you take that again?
Okay, so what was the most terrifying experience you had through the journey to work abroad? Where did you say we should go as well?
Oh, okay, thanks. But let me confirm quickly. Can everyone hear me clearly?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, all right.
This
I'll take
one, you
that.
can hear him, right?
I'll take that for everyone then.
Yeah, I
Okay,
can.
so terrifying. Terrifying would probably be the wait period. Actually, terrifying would be the wait period for me. And of course, there were different stages where I felt almost discouraged, in the whole journey. So I started my journey officially in
Yes.
2017, and up until that time, I never had a second degree, because what you find is when you work in like financial institutions and stuff like that, you can get so caught up with work, and you probably not really have time for advanced schooling, unless you just have to painstakingly remind yourself that you should do it. So it was more about the job and professional certifications for me, and that was what I was doing. I didn't know that it will be a point where I have to make some kind of monumental decision in my life, like relocating abroad, and my degree would come into question. So what did I mean by this was the fact that when I started the Canada journey, and okay, so basically, and maybe a lot of people are aware of this, when you want to immigrate to Canada, they have what you call the express entry system. Now, for the express entry system, you're gonna have to certify some requirements, and then you'll be in what they call a pool. You'll be in a pool with different people all over the world as a result of different requirements. Basically, it could be your age, the younger the better. It could be your years of experience. The more years of experience you have under your belt, the better. And as well, you have to write the international English language test called IELTS, called IELTS, and you have to have a very, very good score in IELTS. Usually in the balance, we say you have to max out your score. You max out meaning you have like the highest score. So basically, you have 4 subjects: speaking, listening, reading, and writing, all over 9. So I had 8.5 over 9 average across all boards. So that meant I maxed out. So it's very, very important that you have a high score in such endeavor, when you're on this journey. So basically, I did all that, I evaluated my degree. You have to evaluate your degree, because of course, just your university degree in Nigeria is not enough. You have to evaluate it some international bodies like WES, like ICAS, ICES, different international bodies, so that they can certify that your degree and your university is recognized in Canada, because there are some schools that they don't accept, that they don't certify, basically. So yeah, once I did all that, I thought that was really cool, and I was in the pool. However, it appeared that I was getting older, and even though I did so well in IELTS and all that, my points weren't really enough for me to be considered. By consider, it means when you're in the pool, the government of Canada would extend an invitation to you to apply. So it meant I was in the pool, and whatever I had, whatever achievement I thought I had up until that point did not suffice. So that was quite scary, given the experience I had, and of course, but it was beyond that. It was about making the quota. So what I meant is I had to go for an extra degree. So I was about, okay, which extra degree will be faster for me? There's the PGD and there's the master's, right? So I chose the PGD. Remember, it wasn't more so about doing an extra degree, because if I was going to do an extra degree for me now, because I'm pretty much in management now, I was probably going to go for MBA, for example. But at that time, MBA wasn't the goal. It was about getting an extra degree to further my cause. So I did a PGD with an affiliate to OAU, National Center for Technology Management at Kofa Biomin VI. And of course, that helped fast track my journey. So with an extra degree, you get extra points in the pool. Now, all of this, I'm just putting to you in like a 3 minutes nuggets. Is a lifetime of worry and efforts for me, like stretched across 1 year. So you're talking about challenges. This was it for me, right? And then, of course, once I did the PGD, I was back in the pool with a higher score. However, the score still did not suffice. So I was really worried, like, okay, what's going on, right? At that point, I had done everything I could do as a professional. I had the years of experience under my belt. I had 2 degrees. I had very good IELTS score, and my IELTS score was going to expire after 2 years. You have to do another one, So I didn't want to even experience all that pain all over again. So, but of course, one thing I want all of us to take away from this, and I'm glad we're having this conversation, is information is everything. Information is golden. Without information, without having the right connections, the right network to talk to people, to bring you up to speed on things happening that you don't even know, you could be missing out on a whole lot. And I'm glad the admins, the excos were able to put up this kind of initiative. And I really hope that we have more of these sessions, you understand? So I was just having this conversation with this friend. He was a consultant. He came to work in GT Bank, and we're talking. We struck off so well. And it was like, in addition to express entry, sometimes, okay, so you have what they call provinces in Canada. You have like 10 provinces or so: Ontario, Alberta, and the likes, etc. So they say, apart from the express entry, right, the provinces too, they nominate people from the pool, right? And you know what? Once I found that out, once you gave me that info, all I did was just to extend my time and research on that. So now, when you're in the pool, right, you represent yourself based on the professional title what you had. So up until that time, based on experience, I had to do extra research. Okay, maybe I was putting myself as a network engineer in the pool, right? So I had to review my profile and updated it to be like a network manager because at that time I was managing teams. Just that singular change that I made led to Ontario government extending me an invitation to apply to them because at that time they were looking for IT managers. And of course, a network manager is like a subset of IT managers. And of course, Ontario extended the invite to me. I applied, I made the requirements. Of course, once a province extends an invite to you, and of course you pass it, they will extend you 600 extra points. And of course, when you add that point to my existing point in the federal pool, I mean, it was a no-brainer, and that was how I got the federal extension of invite to apply, right? And I did all that,
Wow.
and I got my visa, and then that was it. And of course, we have and there was a part of after getting the what's it called, the PR, waiting for visa and all that. But I don't want to focus on that now, so that others can talk. But I'd say it was quite excruciating. These 5 minutes nuggets I've given you guys now, it was quite excruciating to find out that at every milestone I had, there was another hurdle to cross just ahead. So I hope it makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. So I don't know if Mariam is on the call. She can probably continue. So it's what. Let's hear from you. Is there was there any terrifying moments for you?
For me, I don't have much to say, but I think the terrifying moment for me was when I had to write GRE a second time. The first one wasn't so great. The second one wasn't so great either, but I just left it and let it be and still used my GRE to apply to other schools like that. Another terrified moment for me was I got my admissions in during COVID when the pandemic was really at its peak, and the thought of losing um my graduate assistantship was terrifying for me because I got admission for fall 2020, that's last year, and but due to COVID, embassy in Nigeria wasn't open and all that. I couldn't even get a visa appointment, and I had to let go of my graduate assistantship because if I couldn't make it to the US, they were going to give it to somebody else. And I was also told me deferring my admission wasn't an automatic deferment for my graduate assistantship, that I was actually going to apply again, and the possibility of me getting it was very slim because obviously they were going to give other students that could make it down to the US at the time. So over time, I mean, I already deferred. I knew I already like lost the graduate assistantship that moment, but I still didn't give up because I I felt like I could still get it even though I was coming back in spring. And normally it's difficult to get graduate assistantship or get any form of funding for the spring semester. That's the January semester. So I think that's like the terrifying one for me. I had to keep sending like emails upon emails, and I just didn't give up on it. And I think I must have frustrated them so badly that they just had to give me my funding back. So that's it for me.
All right, thank you. Mariam Bello, please can you kindly take over?
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you.
Correct.
Issy Watts. I'm not sure why you are like talking as if you are gentle because I've listened to your podcast and you would go for your word of life of the party. So yeah, so I'm just going to ask you this question. Um, so remote or travel abroad, like remote work or travel abroad, which is better and why?
Well, I mean, personally, I think travel abroad is better because you can get exposure when you're like abroad. Fine, you can be working remotely for a company. I feel like there's still like so much difference, like in you being here and then working back home. Like, I don't know if that makes sense, but for me personally, I think I would prefer traveling abroad for the exposure. I mean,
Okay, thank you for that. Joy, what's your take on that?
Okay, so I've done both. I've worked remotely and I'm currently abroad. And I would say that um whilst the remote work improves like one aspect of your life very well, travel abroad really touches on more, and it kind of like it gives you a full package of everything. I also think that remote work has like a ceiling. You might be very, very happy and comfortable with like the 2K or 3K dollars you make per month. But when you really put that into like the global picture, annually you're making like $36,000 if you use like a 3K estimate. Um, that's still nothing compared to what your counterparts are probably making abroad properly. And there's also like a much limited scope for you to travel up the ladder um, in remote work. But I'm not saying this absolutely. This isn't the same thing for everybody. I'm saying for a lot of the opportunities that are existent for people to work remotely from Nigeria, this is the kind of thing that happens. So yeah.
Okay, okay, fair enough. So some of us that don't want to like, or maybe feeling too comfortable working remotely, I think this is another like eye opener for us. Anifa, please, can you let us have your take on that?
Oh, me, I'm a proponent for moving abroad. Like, so I mean, not to shoot down Nigeria or the potential it has and everything. I just feel like since I moved abroad, I've been a lot more productive. Like, I can actually plan my day, plan when I need to study, not have to worry about if there's going to be light or not. Like, there's just so much like lesser to worry about. And this is not to say that abroad doesn't have its own issues. And I think like Joey said, like there's a ceiling, like there's nothing like being here present in the moment, and people can actually see you, evaluate you, and put you forward for stuff. But when you're remote, like I definitely think it's not as easier, and it it may lull you into that false sense of security that, oh, I'm getting 3K, 4K or thereabouts. But when you put it in perspective, like it's still you being shortchanged in some way. And I feel like even if people prefer to live in Nigeria and things like that, it's still worth it to explore what working in other places is like, right? Don't limit yourself to, oh, I'm more comfortable here, I don't want to move, cultural differences, whatever other reservation. Just try out stuff.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. So my next question, I'll be starting from Isiwat again, because again, I don't know why you are forming gentle for us. So we all know
Oh wait,
the
you haven't asked me actually. Yeah, and
oh, I'm so
I
sorry.
don't
I'm
know
so
why
sorry.
Mariam is speaking.
yeah,
I'm
but
so
it's
sorry.
fine.
Odisha.
Please,
But it's
I'm
fine.
so
I
sorry.
totally,
Please.
I totally align with Anifa and Joey. And really, I think everybody who has been listening on this call would know that that answer from Anifa and Joey will be obvious at this point. I mean, I'm a proponent of it, moving abroad, because, of course, like they said, there's a ceiling, there's no way you can equate it, especially if you're you know, tech and aspiring, and of course, trying to explore boundaries and stuff, right? You being on ground here is second to none. You know that. I'm a proper Niger boy. You get. I'm a proper Niger guy. I stayed in Lagos all my life, so I have a wealth of experience as far as navigating the waters in Lagos is concerned. I was always going to VI from Oshodi or Unikpan for like 8 years. Trying to put in the shift, trying to do all that, and of course, you have to handle NEPA and traffic. It's insane, right? So what I would say is this, without dwelling too much on this, right? Not everybody is going to travel. Not everyone will travel. But I'd like my brothers and sisters who are listening on this call, this is how you should do, right? You should have options, okay? Always have options, right? Always have options. When you have options, you can decide to pursue this or not, rather than have a fixated approach to life that you would not travel. If the traveling comes, alhamdulillah, you take it. If it comes and you don't want to take it, but at least you know you have it because it's a panacea to other things. I've been in Canada for like close to 3 months now. There's no such thing as a maybe light outage unless there's some kind of maintenance that had to happen, which hasn't happened here. Although I got the inkling that sometimes there's a maintenance and a sector will be off and stuff like that, just like preventive maintenance you get. But other than that, it's been the best of everything, right? It's the best of opportunities and etc. I'm close to Elias, and we talk. It's been the best of opportunities, honestly. So, and there's no way I can equate what I have here right now to the 8 years of work I put in when I was in Nigeria. Some work, yeah, remote works for it, maybe dev or so, front end, back end, and all that. But at a point in time, you find yourself there. There's these guys in Canada called Van Hack. Their job is to recruit people globally, recruit global talent, tech guys, and bring them to Canada. I'm sure some of those that they recruited probably even already had the whole remote
Sorry,
work
please, what did
experience.
you call those people
Van
again?
Hack, Van Hack, Van Hack, VAN space
Please, can you
HA,
spell?
yeah, VAN space HACK, Van Hack. If you go to their website, you can sign up, and of course, you do interviews, behavioral interviews and all that, skill-based interviews and stuff like that. But what I'm trying to say is this, right? Some of those guys that they import from Nigeria, from Nigerian shores as well, they've had a bit of experience with remote work, but they are now in Canada and they can attest to the fact that the experience is not the same. Joey put it rightly by saying that, oh, there's always a cap. Oh, you earn this, you think you're a big boy in Nigeria. But on the global face of it, there's still some shores you have to explore. So on the finality, I'd say always have options, explore it. So it happens, you're like, oh my God, I have visa to Canada, right? But I don't want to go. Yeah. Not like to say, oh, you just want to stay in Nigeria and see what happens. It's a paradigm shift, right? When I was leaving school in 2007, it wasn't happening like this. When I was leaving school, people were going to NITs to study Microsoft Word. I did that too. Microsoft PowerPoint, you were hearing of Dreamweaver and all those things, Photoshop, right? Now we're hearing JS, React. It's a Python. It's a complete paradigm shift, and the world of work is a paradigm shift, and the whole migration process is a paradigm shift. The way doctors are relocating to is a paradigm shift. Doctors have always been in UK, right? But the sensitization, the globalization is happening now. So we cannot kid ourselves. You have to recognize that that is what's happening now. So always have that option, and then you leave it to yourself to decide whether you want to move or not. So I'm always going to be for Japa. Thanks.
So before,
Okay.
sorry, before we move on, I just want to add something to this. Like for people who are still in school or just about to finish school, like I'm not, I cannot overemphasize the importance of making sure you're applying for all these different opportunities. Like it makes it so much easier to just transition and move and try out stuff. I have friends here who have been here for like 5 years and they decided to go back home for some reason. But put it in perspective of if he had stayed at home, how easy would it have been to actually travel, say after 5 to 10 years of leaving school? We just heard a story from one of the panelists too. So just keep that in mind and keep your options open, please, please.
Thank you very much for the time. And because of time, we would have to be rushing. We have to be rushing through the questions. Please, I was about to say you mentioned something earlier. So are you saying everyone should actually have traveling abroad in mind? Like everyone should have that in mind.
I'm
That
saying, okay,
that generation. Omo,
Abdullah, what did you say? I didn't catch that, Abdullah.
no. I was just commenting on it that with it, everyone in Nigeria is about Japan. Thinking about Japan as well.
Okay, so basically, if I could answer the sister directly, it's a bit of a slippery slope. Your question, it was quite direct, but of course, I understand what you're inferring. When I was starting my conversation, I started with a caveat. Not everyone will travel. So I think that suffices in and of itself. However, having experienced both sides of the divide, and of course, I'm still starting my journey, but I'm very excited, right? I'm very excited at what the future holds. I mean, I'm an optimist, right? So I'm not going to say abroad is all rosy and stuff, right? I've had conversation in different platforms, and of course, I'm always of the positive vibe. Trust me, right? So I'm going to always focus on the positive. You get what I'm saying is
Okay.
this: we should have options. Okay, you should consider it. Everyone will not travel. However, it does not hurt to explore the possibility of immigration. Basically, that's what I'm saying.
All right. Got him. And I hope our listeners also are able to catch that. So, not to look like I'm entering into it too much, I'm going to be asking my runaway mentor, Joye, this question. So, yeah, you know what I mean, anyways.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we know that Shakpa is like the reigning slang now in Nigeria. So, can you tell us like the possible Shakpa moments you have faced or that you think that one might likely face before and after you japa?
Wow. Wordplay on point. Um, so let me first make sure that everybody's on the same page. When you say Sakwa, you're talking about possible sufferings, or what
Just
exactly do you have in mind?
just the context it's being used nowadays, like
Uh,
when you are not maybe buoyant enough, when you are broke and all of that. So what are the possible moments you think one might probably experience this
okay,
before and after?
okay. Um, so I would say that whilst being abroad improves the quality of your life drastically, and I'd say that in no way with the intention of attacking Nigeria. It only does that if you do it the right way. So there's always like an air of desperation from a lot of people in terms of trying to travel abroad, and they are willing to take any path that would get them there. So doing that exposes you to a lot of possible sufferings. And I say this because I've also seen tons of Nigerians here that, I mean, they have the hopes of things will surely get better when they move here and they come here at any expense. Then they end up being treated like third class citizens with very minimal access to healthcare, minimal access to a lot of facilities. And you have to like put in shifts like somebody that is basically an animal. So in terms of Sapa, there is a lot you can possibly face if you don't do your Japa the right way. Um, I don't know if I've gone through any of those moments. Alhamdulillah. Not because I've necessarily planned everything well, but Alhamdulillah, if you have like a certain level of coverage, then you should be good to go. But if you don't do it the right way, this place would eat you up faster than Nigeria would eat you up. That's what I can say. It will push you to the edge of like depression, desperation, and the system is basically almost skewed to getting black people or Muslims in some kind of fix. So if you're not wise enough to see beyond that big picture, you would basically fall into the rabbit hole. So I'm done.
Okay,
It's
thanks for
Mariam.
that. Yeah, I
Mariam, I
can.
think there is one last question that can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Ask that particular question that has to do with Nigeria.
Oh, okay.
As the
Yeah,
last
we are
one.
still getting there.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
can
we are
take
still getting there.
questions from the audience.
Yeah. So this last question now before we move to question and answer. So Hanifa, how do you plan to give back to Nigeria? Like, is that in your plans in any way?
I think
Hmm.
I already like it's a very good question, and for me, like I'm really big on giving back. So one of the things I used to do before even leaving Nigeria was I used to be part of this organization called Tech Quest, and we would organize like coding classes um for people who were generally interested to get into tech. I think at the point I was even like the vice coordinator in the whole of Lagos State, but I wasn't really doing that too much when I traveled. So since I've also been here, I got to be part of a few programs like mentoring young Muslim women or young women particularly on, how to code, if they have questions around, how to show up in the workplace and things like that. Currently, I think I'm mentoring like two people for that program. One of the things I've also recently started is with the podcast. So, like the podcast is really myself, Isiwa, and one of our other friends, and we really talk about how we got started. And one of the plans we have is also to share like more about our day to day as professionals in tech is, and for the future, for me, like one of the biggest things is being able to give back even financially. So for me, like I lost my dad quite early, like when I was in secondary school, really, and things were really quite difficult. But the good part for me was I've always been like very smart, alhamdulillah, and I got like tons of scholarship. And that kind of worked all the way through to uni. And in uni, there was this particular one targeted at like Muslim students. I think Abdul Kabir Ali scholarship. So eventually I want to be able to have something like that. And of course, to get to that level, we need to make money and all. So like currently it's really just mentoring other young women or helping other people. But eventually I hope to be able to like do more substantial things like contributing financially.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. Jeeves, um, how do you plan to give back to Nigeria, and is that in your plan?
Yeah, it's my plan. However, I don't have a fully formed plan yet. But of course, I'll be in touch.
Just be in touch. Okay, interesting. Um, Isirat, please tell us how you want to give back to us. So with that, we have decided not to jump by yet.
I was saying you won't call me. So currently, I'm a volunteer for TechQuest, and like Anifa mentioned, it's an organization that also trains kids how to code and to have an early start in tech. So I think for now, like that's my that's my only that's the only thing in my mind right now. Just try to be more active. I used to be very active when I was in Nigeria, and now I'm still quite active, but maybe not as much as I would love to. Um, but then that's like my main focus for now.
Okay, Dre, please.
Have I not tried? By removing myself from Nigeria's expenditure and everything, I've opened more space for that. So, uh,
Okay, fair enough. But we want more than that.
okay. I don't have the capacity to really do like those really big things. So I just try to help in the little ways I can. I currently have like a group that helps people to navigate academic pursuits abroad. We have about 200 or like 200 people on that group, and every year we have almost like 10 people completing their process and moving abroad to study. So that's one of those little ways that we're trying to give back. Aside from that, I'm almost always open to mentorship programs when and wherever I can, and helping people that are like basically went through this are going through the same struggles that we went through at the beginning, and helping them, not make the same mistakes. Because I think making a lot of mistakes is one of those things that can really derail you at the beginning of your journey. So if you have someone that has basically gone through that, it helps to just ease everything. So that's all I'm doing, and that's all I can do for now. Hopefully it gets better, inshallah.
Okay, thank you very much for all your inputs. And now we'll be moving over to question and answer. So someone asked, or someone said I should ask what you think about the pros of earning forex remotely in Nigeria and what that same amount gets them there, considering the expenses over there. So I'm not going to be calling names now. Anybody can just answer that. Should I take the question again?
So I think this is basically question from audience, right?
Yes,
Mm.
question from audience.
Yeah,
So
so
maybe,
you can either drop it on the chat or you can put up your mic.
so do you want one of us to answer the
Yes,
question?
please.
So I can help. Like, to put it in perspective, like, think about what you get. So if you move to the UK, for example, you're going to be paying tax and you're going to be paying something called national insurance. And what national insurance gets you is free healthcare. Now, imagine if you were in Nigeria and you're making all this forex and you fall seriously ill, or maybe not even seriously, just something basic. Like, I've heard horror stories about the healthcare. I've seen cases really close to me where people lose their lives for really, really tiny reasons. And the fact is, those things happen here, but at least you have a guarantee that if you have these problems, there's like a socialized care because you are paying into the system, you are paying your tax, you're paying your national insurance, you have that assurance that things will be fine, in that regard. But in Nigeria, like, it could be, I'm not even going to go into how fragile the naira is right now. But at the end of the day, like, for me, and maybe this is me still coming across as too pro abroad. Like, forex is fine, and let's not even get into how you guys that earn forex pay your tax and things like that. I don't know if people actually pay taxes when they earn money from abroad, but that's another conversation. But for me, like, even with the expenses, here, even with the rent and all this tax you pay, what you get is just that peace of mind that the system works, at least up to an extent.
Okay, thank you very much for your input, Anifa. I have another question here. Someone is asking, how does one get job opportunities abroad without experience? Like, is that possible? Or what
What?
are the required skills? Okay, just answer the question. It's a question from one of our audience. So the
So
person would
anyone
like to
can actually,
take that.
anyone actually, any of the
Okay,
panelists
maybe I
can.
should take this. Uh, First of all, the question is getting a job abroad without work experience. I'm not sure how that magic works. If the person figures it out, please let us know. Um, but if I want to be very realistic with the response, I think without having like decades or eons of work experience, it's still very possible to get jobs abroad. And the key is information. I think this is also something Jibs mentioned at one point in time. Leveraging people and your network would always help you to break barriers that you don't even see are existing. So a very good example is for me, how I was able to get my very first remote kind of role wasn't because I was necessarily good enough for that role or I had that much visibility, but I was lucky enough to be in connection with people that were already established in remote opportunities. So I just basically pushed myself on their neck that they should get me into that platform, and they did. And from there, it just continued to roll on from there. So I would say be very informed or be very meticulous in the way you kind of like use information and how you try and leverage people, because people are like your greatest resources, and it would help you as much as you can. So platforms I can suggest, I think Turing helps with a lot of remote roles. I think Tonga helps with a lot of remote roles. Um, Van Hack has already been mentioned. I think Crossover also helps with remote roles. Um, then maybe Upwork, those ones are more freelance based. But if you check all these websites, then you probably see something. An angel list, I guess. Those 4 or 5.
And if you can
Okay,
help us
so
drop some links on the group chat, we will appreciate. Then I think it's what, sorry, and if I also talked about some opportunities in school, if you can probably drop links to like get how to get those opportunities. So, yeah.
So yeah, I can share some links, but like really, especially for people who are still in school or just about to finish, you can get jobs without work experience. All you need to do is obviously prepare for the interviews and things like that. I'll try to compile a list and share with everyone here later.
all right. So we have another question. Someone says, is it possible to come from a non-science background and get job in IT?
Yeah, I believe it's
So who is
possible.
going to?
I believe
Okay,
it's
okay,
possible.
go ahead.
Yeah, because you have some roles. You have some roles that you can easily, align with. So if that person is on the call, I want you to not be discouraged. There are roles like project management. You don't have to have an IT background to do project management, and of course, you end up managing IT projects. What that happens is all about managing resources that work with you. Once you understand the fundamentals of project management, from initiation to planning to execution to controlling and then to closing, once you have that basic fundamental, for example, you'll be able to thrive in that role. And of course, there are different paradigms out there. You have the Prince 2, which is UK standard, and you have the PMP, which is a popular one, which is project management professional. People go for PMP a lot because it's more global. Like how I moved to Canada right now, PMP is a big one. And it also played a role. It played a role in how I got my job because I'm more like a manager, and of course, I'm handling different projects. So apart from the fact that I had the technical experience to do what I'm doing, the fact that I had PMP came up in the interview, and there were some behavioral and situational questions. So you see, in any paradigm, in any walks in life, even if you're not IT, PMP is there for the taking for you. It's something you can do on your own, and you never know when it to come up in the future to help you. You can also be a business analyst. Now, business analysts also work hand in hand with project managers. They understand the requirements of the projects. They do requirements gathering, scoping, among other things like that. So these are roles that you necessarily don't have to be tech savvy before you do them. And there's probably a plethora of other roles as well. But just to answer you directly and to give you a quick win perspective on this, yes, it is possible not to be non-tech and thrive in an IT space. Thanks.
All right.
Okay, sorry. I don't know. Maybe can I ask that question? Maybe I can clarify the question better.
Please
Yeah,
go
okay,
ahead.
go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, what I mean is that yes, I mean if someone comes from an arts background, for instance, I studied philosophy, and I'm also tech savvy. And after my undergraduate and my master's in philosophy, I've always been coding and doing things. So, will it come up in the interview that yeah, my first degree and second degree is not in systems engineering or physics or computer science, and I want to get a role in the coding industry, in the software industry? Will I be opportuned even outside the country?
Okay, yes. What we have employers now that are very, very, that have evolved. The workspace has evolved. To answer it directly, it's not going to be a problem. What you are selling is your skill. As long as you can do the job, your background doesn't matter. As long as you can do the job, because they will ask you behavioral questions, they will have you situational questions, and of course, they'll be expecting you to use the STAR approach, situation technique, situation task, STAR, STAR, action and result, situation task, action and result. So naturally, you shouldn't have a problem as long as you've done it before. You have your portfolio to show for it. So employers now are more about the skills you have rather than background. However, there are some programs as well in Canada, for example, for the sake of this conversation, whereby they are quite keen on what you study, but that's just a subset on the side and it's not quite popular. But of course, people who are skill based, who are looking for people who can do the job, your background doesn't matter. Like some guy that I know who has thrived now and is a manager in some cyber security company. He studied agri engineering, agric engineering, and right now he's like the CISO, Chief Information Security Officer, because he knows how to do penetration testing. He knows how to do defensive technique and strategies. He knows how to protect a company from external threats. He has shown it in his skill. So as long as you have the skill, my brother, you there's always opportunity to thrive. So don't be discouraged. Thanks.
Okay, I hope that answers your question.
I think Kuda JavaScript has a question, so you can unmute yourself.
Okay,
Yes,
in the absence of no question from our listeners,
I think
I
we
would
have.
just
We
like
have.
to. Oh, we do?
Please, I
Okay,
also have a question, please. I don't know if you have to
okay.
take it on one.
Yes, we,
So who is coming up first? Should I?
Please go ahead.
Okay,
Kuda
my
JavaScript.
question is to Mr. G. Okay, I think I'm quite in line with your skill, like your skill set, what you do. That is my own field too. So I want to get an advice on what do you think, what kind of skills, like I am also into cybersecurity. I do more of the red team guys, the red team part. So that's the offensive part. So I want to ask, so how can I build myself such that I'll be relevant to access opportunities abroad? So please, and also I want to get your contact because I want to take that mention.
Okay, I thank you very much, brother Jamu. I have to say to you that you're on the path, you're on the right path. Being a red teamer yourself, and of course, it doesn't get any better than that. So there are certifications you take. I think there was a time we had this conversation on the group one time on WhatsApp. There are certifications you take just to bolster your skills in that area. OSCP, for example, is one, and of course there are a couple of others as well. And more often than not as well, you have to try and find yourself an opportunity to showcase your skills, even if you have to do some kind of co-op or internship opportunities. I think there was a time I shared some signing up opportunities with cybersoc in Lagos, where they were trying to get some people. I shared the link on the WhatsApp group. So as much as possible, yes, you also have to try to increase your networking in terms of connection with people, so that you can always know when it's happening. Different meetups are happening in Nigeria, so that right now you can just focus on honing your skill in that space. You're on the right track. They have a lot of opportunities for both offensive and defensive guys in Canada, and of course, certification goes a long way here in Canada. I can't emphasize that enough. Anywhere, even UK, US, as long as you have the certification, it helps. It gets through the door. Certification, because recruiters, job hunters, they say, "Oh, you have this, and this PCNSI or something, CCNA," for the sake of this conversation. So do not stop taking certifications in that area. CEH as well, certified ethical hacker, for example, is very popular. It's what gets you to the door. Then you now use your mouth to shalaye, to now explain what you've done. And yes, of course, if you search the Telegram group, my Jibs, I think I'm the only Jibs on this group, so you can always DM me. Of course, I'm always up for connections and the likes. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, Kuda JavaScript. I don't know if you have a question. Lukman, or you can do next. I'm not sure if Kuda JavaScript.
Sir,
Lukman, you asked the question.
sir, I have a question. I have a question.
You asked?
My question is,
Yes, sure. Go ahead.
how do you hedge against all these when you apply for some job, they pay you based on your location. So how do we hedge against that? Like how do we do something about that? So we pay the normal standard that the company has to offer, not the location based pay that we are always given from as we are from Nigeria.
I don't know if anyone else could take that, but I'll be very honest with you. That's a very, very realistic question you just asked. And I'll be very, very honest with you. When you recruit remotely, it's cheap. Okay, and we won't be sentimental about it. When you recruit remotely, it's cheap. If I recruit somebody who is based in Nigeria, I understand the economic situation in Nigeria and I'm going to thrive on it. Okay, it's just business. You understand, my brother? So you can't you cannot really do much about it unless you don't want the opportunity. And if you don't take the opportunity, somebody else will take it. You get, so it's not about maximizing what you have. And that's the difference, right? When you are trying to work remotely, unless you've gotten to some certain level of experience whereby you know what your peers command, and then of course you can let go of such opportunity. For example, let me give you an instance. Let's say you apply for a job now, they're offering you two per month. The same job, if you were based in Canada, they're probably paying 6K per month, right? But you need that 2K because you know what it translates to when you do your conversion in Nigerian parlance. So you might not really have that bargaining chip or the bargaining power to negotiate with them to pay you the same amount they are paying the peers who are based or resident in Canada. So more often than not, employers know this, right? And they take advantage of it. You understand? And all the whole thing you get. However, and that's why the difference is there whenever maybe when when you are based here, because you have companies like Glassdoor, Indeed, people like that. You have people who have gotten jobs in similar roles. They've done analysis on the websites. They tell you, okay, as a network analyst, for example, this is the pay grade, this is the pay bracket, and stuff like that. You get, so you know that when you are trying to go for a role, you have an idea of what to do. Even the employer knows that you're pretty much informed. And of course, when you guys are talking about brackets and stuff like that, you are very much well informed and confident to do that. There are probably other factors that play in as well, but I think employers, they leverage the fact that it's pretty much cheaper. That is, if they're offering the job remotely, it's pretty much cheaper for them than somebody who is on ground and can negotiate with a higher capacity. Thanks.
I think maybe to add to that, like you need to realize that location-based pay isn't just a problem of, oh, you're in Nigeria, you want to edge for earning as much as someone in Seattle, for instance. It's also like prevalent here in the UK. So even though we are paid really well here in the UK too, like you cannot compare what we are paid to what the US environment pays. And the reason why is there's so much more demand for talent. Other companies are willing to pay even higher salaries. So it's just a demand. It's a math thing when you think about it. Like, I'm not saying there's no demand for software engineers in Nigeria, but the going rate for software engineers is known. So when you get an offer, even if it's a remote offer, it won't be too over the top, maybe as much as someone in the US, for instance. Likewise, if I were to compare US and UK salaries, maybe in the coming future, a miracle will happen and, this whole location-based pay will be thrown away. But you need to realize it's a general thing. It's not, say, a Nigerian problem only.
Sorry, can I chip into that? For someone who recruits here in Nigeria, uh, it's not only a problem in Nigeria, even in US, I know there's a discourse around it. People who moved away from San Francisco and, their capital city for the tech have been having similar issues as well. I know Google, Facebook are having a tough time, convincing them how we have to reduce your pay. You guys are not living within a certain area. Also, we need to understand that, yes, cost of running certain things here in Nigeria needs to be factored into. Government, before you can recruit here in Nigeria, there are certain things you have to pay. Even though, yes, all these things are already established in the US, but to recruit here in Nigeria, there's a lot of things that needs to be put in place. And all these things are factored into before the company says, oh, I'm going to pay you a certain amount of money. And again, there's nothing wrong. You can always look at, just like Jib said, you can look up on Glassdoor and try to understand what is like the equivalent salary in the market. You may not get up to that, but at least a $1,000 difference would not hurt you. Thank you.
Sorry,
Okay.
sir. Thanks for the. Sorry, sir. What I'm trying to say is probably how can we edge against it? But I was thinking of I think the dual citizenship, if that will work for it. But okay, So what's your take on that?
Well, companies would actually pay you based on where you are located. Even if you are an Igbo man here in Nigeria, they will still consider your location. So it's
Exactly.
not really about you are one black man or one Igbo man, you know. So yeah, it's more about the location, you know, where you stay and probably what you have to offer. There are some skills that are very, very scarce. And if you are very good at it, trust me, the companies are willing to pay you the US amount. I have people here in Nigeria who earn over 150,000 dollars, even more than the US counterparts. And they are based here in Nigeria and they work for Andela. Probably because their skills are scarce and Andela can't even get those companies. Again, some of them work for big organizations like Pluralsight, GitHub, and those people are willing to pay a lot of money.
Ó tún tó ṣàkíyèsí aṣọ́njú òní náà àwọn olóhùn gbàgbé ni eléyìí tó ń ṣe yẹn wọn náà máa tọ́wọ́ padà yá àpọ̀ padà ní ṣe má àmọ́ kọ́ jẹ́ pé ọ̀rọ̀ tí ọ̀tọ́rọ̀ gbà.
Okay, Litmus, I hope your question has been answered.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that. Amir, thank you also for your input. So on a final note for all our speakers, so can you like briefly, just in maybe less than 1 minute, if possible, tell us about the skills requirements as compared to like skills requirements abroad as compared to what we have in Nigeria? Like the way we see a lot of requirements here, and is it same abroad?
Okay, I'll just go first. Thank you. And I'd like to seize the opportunity, since this is a finality from our side now, to thank the excos of MUSDEV for this session. I mean, it's been quite interesting because I'm a learner as well. I'm a student as well. And of course, a lot of nuggets have been shared here that I've learned from. So IT is generic. It's the same in Nigeria. It's the same here as far as I'm concerned. You know, you expect to put in your shift. You expect to know your onions. You know, for example, the role I'm in right now, I never did it in Nigeria, right? Whereby I have to evaluate clients. I'm in a consulting role now, right? All I've known is maybe a GT Bank's network and how it is, or a Fidelity Bank's network, how it is. But right now, in a consulting capacity, I have to evaluate a lot of clients' network and understand the pinpoints, their pain points, understand their requirements, and try to improve on it. Now, it's the same thing I've learned in Nigeria, the same going to Awolowo Glass House in Ikeja on that bridge, the same skills I acquired there is the same principle I'm applying here. So the requirements is the same, but of course, they are very particular about certifications. You know, it kind of sets you apart. It kind of gets you to the door, like I said earlier. And yes, pretty much. So in terms of requirements, it's the same experience and requirements, certifications and hands-on. So they pretty much work hand in hand. Once you have that, be it in Allah, and of course with your utmost faith in Allah, that things will pan out right for you. All stories are not the same, but of course with the utmost faith in Allah, that things will pan out well for you. There is no way with the upbringing. I mean, Nigerians, we have thick skin. That's what I say. So with the exposure you have in Nigeria and the positive mindset you have to thrive overseas, you know, the sky is the beginning. Thank you.
Okay, Isiwat, please can you let us have your take on that? Isiwat, are you still here with us?
Can perhaps move on. I hope,
Okay, Hanifa, skill requirements here in Nigeria as compared to abroad.
Yeah, so I think as you heard earlier from James, I think it's basically the same thing, but this time around, like I feel like you really have to know your onions. Like you can't coast through to be able to challenge stuff, to be able to say, oh, why shouldn't we explore? To be able to question things, you need to really know your stuff. So everyone in this field knows that it's a field of lifelong learning and things like that. So I don't really need to talk too much about that. One of the things I've really seen is that people don't really talk as much about their achievements and things like that at work. They just feel like, if they put their head down, do the work, someone somehow will see them. And I think it's a bit of a cultural difference when you think about it. It may be different in the US, it may be different in Canada, but you really have to be able to like talk about your achievements. And most of us try to form humble, we don't like to talk too much. Please shout everything you do. When that promotion is going to come up, people are going to say, oh, this person did this. I know this person. But if you're quiet and doing all the work, like no one is going to speak up for you. Like, feel free, network, please. Like, don't go and sit in your silo in the office. Nobody knows you. Nobody talks to you. Like, people are still people regardless. So I feel like in addition to all the, hard skills, like, understand the programming language, understand your data structures, understand the tools you're using. If you're using React, like, if I ask you a question around a very basic concept, please be able to talk about it. Don't use React for 10 years and you don't even know, like, for example, how the virtual DOM works. Do you get what I mean? But please, like, your software skills, very important, very, very important for success and really leveling up. Like I think Deep said, your hard skills will get you to the door. How you level up is, your soft skills, and obviously continuing to refresh all your hard skills. Yeah, that's it from me.
Okay, all right. So since we already have two contributions, so I'm just going to move over to Joye, and this will be like the final question because I think it was an oversight on my part. We have a question from one of our audience. So the question is, if you have a graduate admission and a job offer, both abroad, which should someone go for? So more like seeking advice. Anyways.
Okay. Um, I also saw the question, and to be honest, it's a very good question. Uh, I I think the general answer would be it depends, but that's probably not what you want to hear. But the truth is, it actually depends. It depends on what you want in life and how you want to go about what you want in life. Any path you pick, I'm sure you will have a very good level of success and happiness. So it's not necessarily a do or die affair. You just need to sit down, weigh the pros and cons, and weigh exactly what you want. So if you're choosing the school, it gives you probably 2 years of stay abroad. It also exposes you to like OPT and CPT of 3 years. So it basically still gives you that exposure to the work environment eventually. If you're picking the job exactly, I mean, if your end result at the end is still to get the job, and you don't think the master's or the degree that you're going for is going to do too much about that, you could go for the job directly and keep building your career. But in the end, you just need to pick what you decide would make you the most happy and trust that Allah will guide you in whatever decision and whatever path you take. I don't think there will be any regrets regardless. So I think that's
Okay,
why.
there's nothing I'll Karen for that. Isiwat, let's have you too.
Yeah, I think it's what I was experienced with this. Let's hear from.
Isiwat, oh,
Is
your
this what
network
here?
abroad. I don't understand. What's going on?
Sorry.
So between
Hey,
is she here?
hey. Okay, maybe she's not. Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah, she's up.
okay. So Jazakumullah khairan to all our speakers and our listeners, and we we are really very we are very grateful that we notified you in such a short period, and you were able to like give us a positive response from your end, and we
No,
hope
no.
to have you again. And to all our listeners too, we hope to also have you again in our subsequent series chat. So inshallah we have come to the end of today's series chat, and yeah, so that will be all for now. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Shonobi, I'll be in your
Oh,
DMs.
My voice.
Who go do giveaway now? Cap.
Muslim, how far our data now?
Who give away for us now?
Who be
Actually,
Kudus?
somebody should actually do give away.